Welcome to my YouTube channel. Please subscribe it and press the bell icon. When people see a really muscular guy, their minds often jump straight to one assumption, that he must automatically be great in bed. The buff equals better idea has been drilled into us through media, movies, and social standards for decades. Those shredded abs, that V-shaped torso, and the confident walk, it all sends a signal of dominance, virility, and stamina. But here's where science steps in to challenge that narrative. Because as it turns out, being muscular doesn't always translate to being a better lover. In fact, it often reveals more about how someone wants to be seen than how they actually connect. When we look at research around sexual performance and satisfaction, what we find is fascinating. Studies show that physical strength can increase confidence, yes, but confidence alone doesn't always equal connection. What keeps a partner satisfied in bed isn't how much a man can lift. It's how much he can listen. It's how well he understands pace, emotion, and mutual pleasure. That's not about muscles, that's about awareness. Interestingly, many men who build large physiques tend to focus so much on their appearance that they sometimes neglect flexibility, breath control, and emotional presence, three things that are directly linked to sexual endurance and satisfaction. Muscles look impressive, but sex isn't a performance, it's an exchange. You can't flex your way to intimacy. The body might attract, but it's the mind that sustains desire. Science also tells us that the initial attraction to muscularity often fades faster in relationships. Women might be drawn to strength at first glance, but over time, emotional connection and communication determine long-term satisfaction. That's because our brains are wired for chemistry, not just aesthetics. The dopamine rush you get from seeing a fit body is temporary, but oxytocin, the bonding hormone, comes from emotional closeness, trust, and understanding. And that's something you can't get from just looking good in a mirror. So, are buff guys really better in bed? Not necessarily. A great physique might turn heads, but it doesn't guarantee depth, timing, or empathy, the real ingredients of great intimacy. The truth is, being better in bed isn't about the body you build in the gym. It's about the connection you build with your partner. Now, let's talk about testosterone, that famous hormone everyone associates with masculinity, power, and of course, its optimal performance. It's often portrayed as the magic ingredient that turns an average guy into a dominant force, both in the gym and in the bedroom. But the truth, as science reveals, is far more nuanced. Testosterone plays a vital role in libido, muscle growth, and energy levels, yes, but like everything in the human body, it's all about balance. Too much or too little can both have unexpected consequences on how a man performs, feels, and connects. High testosterone can boost desire and physical drive, which sounds great in theory, but it also comes with trade-offs. Elevated levels of this hormone can make some men more impulsive, less patient, and even less emotionally responsive in intimate moments. That can translate into being too focused on performance rather than connection, because sexual satisfaction isn't just about drive, it's about awareness, being tuned into your partner's rhythm, emotion, and comfort. And that requires empathy, something that excessive testosterone can sometimes dampen. On the other hand, low testosterone isn't ideal either. It can lead to fatigue, reduced desire, and difficulty maintaining arousal. But here's what's fascinating. Studies show that men in healthy, emotionally connected relationships often have slightly lower testosterone levels than single men, yet report higher sexual satisfaction. Why? Because intimacy thrives on connection, not dominance. When your body isn't in a constant state of competition, it's more capable of relaxation, trust, and genuine pleasure. AI-driven research has also begun to shed light on this complex relationship. When scientists analyze data on hormone levels, relationship dynamics, and performance patterns, they found that men with balanced testosterone, not the highest levels, were more likely to be rated as better lovers. Their secret wasn't raw aggression or physicality, but emotional regulation. They could match passion with patience, intensity with tenderness. So while society glorifies the high testosterone alpha male, the science is whispering a different story, one where balance beats bravado and connection outweighs competition. Because at the end of the day, being great in bed isn't about having the most testosterone, it's about knowing how to channel it. When we think about sexual performance, most people immediately link it to physical appearance, how fit someone looks, how muscular they are, or how impressive their body might seem. But that's where many people miss the real truth, because what truly determines performance isn't aesthetics, it's endurance. You can have a perfectly sculpted body and still struggle with stamina or control. Why? Because real sexual performance relies on a combination of cardiovascular health, flexibility, and mental focus, not just muscle mass. AI-based research and modern studies have analyzed thousands of real-life data points, from fitness trackers to partner satisfaction surveys, and the pattern is clear. Men who engage in consistent aerobic activity, yoga, or endurance training tend to outperform those who only lift heavy weights. It's not that strength training is bad, it's that it's incomplete. You can't flex your way through intimacy. True pleasure comes from rhythm, breathing, and pacing, all functions tied to endurance and oxygen control, not bicep curls. A muscular body might create confidence and attraction, but in the bedroom. Endurance is what keeps the experience alive, that ability to sustain, to control, to move with purpose rather than rush. It all comes from training your heart and your mind, not just your muscles. When your body can maintain steady blood flow, regulate oxygen, and stay relaxed under pressure, you naturally perform better. That's what separates athletes with stamina from those who only look the part. There's also a psychological side. Many men who focus primarily on building muscle often approach sex with a performance mindset, a need to prove something. But intimacy isn't a competition. It's not about duration for the sake of ego or dominance for validation. It's about pacing, listening, and adapting. Those who understand this tend to perform better because they're present, not distracted by self-image or pressure. Interestingly, AI models studying movement synchronization and partner satisfaction have shown that couples who share consistent breathing patterns and coordinated physical rhythm report higher intimacy scores. That's endurance on a neurological level, being in sync with another person's body, not just lasting longer physically. So when it comes to being better in bed, it's time to stop chasing aesthetics and start building endurance. Because real performance doesn't come from how strong you look. It comes from how well you last, connect, and breathe. One of the biggest misconceptions about sexual satisfaction is that it's purely physical, that skill, stamina, or strength alone determine how good someone is in bed. But science keeps proving that the real magic happens above the shoulders, not just below the belt. Emotional intelligence, that ability to understand, feel, and respond to another person's emotions, is one of the strongest predictors of how satisfying intimacy can be. It's what separates a mechanical experience from a meaningful one. When we look at AI-based emotional analysis studies, the results are striking. Men who show higher emotional awareness, those who can pick up on body language, tone, and subtle cues, consistently score higher in partner satisfaction surveys. It's not about being overly sensitive or cautious, it's about being present. Because in intimacy, the most powerful thing you can offer someone isn't your physique, it's your attention. Many people assume that confidence and dominance make a man desirable, but without empathy, that same confidence can come across as arrogance or control. Emotional intelligence is what keeps that balance. It transforms confidence into connection. It's knowing when to take the lead and when to slow down, when to speak and when to listen, when to focus on your partner's breathing instead of your own. And that level of awareness doesn't come from testosterone or gym time. It comes from curiosity, patience, and respect. What's fascinating is that AI-driven relationship data shows that emotional engagement activates the same brain regions linked to trust and pleasure. When someone feels emotionally safe, their body naturally relaxes, allowing for deeper physical and emotional satisfaction. It's a feedback loop. Emotional safety creates physical pleasure, and physical pleasure deepens emotional safety. But when emotional intelligence is missing, even the most physically capable partner can feel disconnected. The experience becomes routine, transactional, or one-sided. And no amount of strength or technique can replace genuine understanding. That's why the men who truly stand out aren't necessarily the most muscular or confident. They're the ones who make their partner feel seen. Because at the end of the day, emotional intelligence is the real aphrodisiac. It's what turns physical moments into unforgettable ones. When we start looking at sexual performance through the lens of neuroscience, things get even more interesting. Because while we often think of sex as a physical act, the truth is it's deeply neurological. Every touch, every heartbeat, every wave of pleasure starts in the brain. And that's where AI and neuroscience have begun to completely reshape how we understand desire, connection, and satisfaction. Advanced imaging technology now allows researchers to see what actually happens in the brain during intimacy, and what they've discovered challenges nearly every old assumption we've had about attraction and performance. When someone feels deeply connected to their partner, brain scans show strong activation in areas linked to bonding, trust, and empathy, not just those tied to arousal or excitement. That means great sex isn't simply about stimulation or physical ability, it's about emotional and neurological synchronization. Two people who are mentally and emotionally in tune experience more intense pleasure because their brains are firing together, mirroring each other's emotional and physical states. It's literally connection at the cellular level. Now, here's where it gets fascinating. When AI models analyze these brain patterns, they show that what people find most satisfying isn't raw intensity or power, but relaxation and presence. A calm, emotionally open brain allows pleasure to flow more naturally. On the other hand, a tense or distracted mind, even in a perfectly healthy, strong body, limits how much joy the brain can actually process. This is why people with less physical strength can still have richer, more fulfilling sexual experiences than someone who's in peak physical condition but emotionally disconnected. Another insight from neuroscience is that the brain's reward centers respond more strongly to mutual pleasure than to self-focused stimulation. In simple terms, giving pleasure creates as much dopamine as receiving it, sometimes even more. This completely shifts how we define being good in bed. It's not about dominance, performance, or control. It's about cooperation. It's a neurological dance, one that's guided by empathy, rhythm, and attention, not ego. So when we talk about what really makes someone exceptional in bed, it isn't about how hard their body can work. It's about how deeply their brain can connect. The way we understand desire is changing faster than ever, and artificial intelligence is playing a surprisingly big role in that transformation. For decades, we've tried to define attraction through simple formulas, looks, body type, chemistry, but AI is showing us that human desire is far more complex, layered, and personal than we ever imagined. Using massive data sets from relationship studies, dating apps, and even brain imaging, AI has started to reveal patterns that explain why we're drawn to certain people and not others. And what's fascinating is that physical appearance, including body type or muscle size, plays a much smaller role than most people think. What AI keeps finding is that emotional compatibility, communication style, and psychological balance carry far more weight when it comes to long-term sexual satisfaction. In other words, your ability to understand and respond to your partner emotionally is more predictive of great sex than how you look without a shirt on. Algorithms can now even analyze voice tone, facial micro-expressions, and linguistic patterns to measure emotional connection, and those insights align perfectly with what neuroscience tells us that trust, comfort, and shared energy drive arousal more powerfully than physical perfection ever could. AI is also reshaping how we view sexual health itself. Instead of seeing performance as something purely physical, it's helping us understand the role of stress, sleep, diet, and even digital habits in shaping libido and intimacy. By analyzing behavior patterns, AI can identify how modern pressures, constant notifications, anxiety, comparison culture subtly chip away at our ability to be present, relaxed, and responsive in intimate moments. It's teaching us that great sex isn't a product of fantasy or muscle. It's a product of mindfulness, balance, and real world connection. And as this technology continues to evolve, we're realizing that attraction is deeply individualized. There's no universal formula for desire because each person's biology, psychology, and emotional rhythm are uniquely wired. What turns one person on might not move another at all, and AI is helping to decode those differences with unprecedented precision. So as science and technology merge, one truth becomes clearer than ever: the future of desire isn't about perfect bodies. It's about perfectly understanding each other.